Okay, so camera's rolling,
It is.
and here we are.
Here we are.
So, how are we doing?
Okay, we're doing fine. I was just reminiscing with myself about my years in the Army, my 2 years in the Army. Something brought that up, and I had a kind of a reverie, a military reverie. Well, yeah, when I washed out of the ROTC at Tufts, they wanted pilots, and I have a depth perception problem. So they washed me out of that, and I was drafted. And I left school at the same time, pretty much, and I got drafted. Fort Knox, Army, basic training, and then after that, they sent me out to Fort Ben Harrison, which no longer exists, and to become a finance specialist. And I enjoyed it. That was a whole adventure out there. Indiana, I have never been in the Midwest before, and it was interesting meeting those folks. They're different.
Let's pause for one moment.
What are you pointing at? That was an option.
But I sometimes will switch it to do certain things.
You're so sophisticated. It's funny. So where are we in the sequence?
So you had started with coming to the service, and
Oh, you want me to continue?
yes.
Okay, you can pick it up from. Yes, so I was basic training at Fort Knox, and then I was shipped off to Fort Ben Harrison in Indianapolis. It no longer exists. Indianapolis does, but Ben Harrison does not. I was sent there to become a finance specialist. It's strictly a white collar, white paper kind of base. So I got to meet with Midwesterners, and that was a whole treat. It's different. Anyway, I came. Where you went, there was a series of assignments in different places around the world, around the country, and you had a choice depending upon where you ended up in class. Well, I ended up third, which was pretty good, I guess, but there was only one assignment to Europe, which is where I wanted to go if I was going to be in the service, go somewhere. A lot of assignments to the Far East, which I didn't want to do at that point. And so there were two guys ahead of me, and I finagled them into switching and blah, blah, blah. I ended up getting the European thing. And they flew me to Bremerhaven, Germany, on the North Sea, former U-boat school for the Nazis. And it was an interesting assignment. The barrack was a beautiful brick building with parquet floors where they had housed these soldiers, these Marines. I guess they were sailors, U-boat sailors. Anyway, I definitely had some adventures in the service there. It was a very good deal. It really was a wonderful way to serve. I was there for about a year. And I had a girlfriend from Utah who was the head of the Special Services. She had a very nice car, and we had a lot of fun and traveled all over Europe when the opportunity arose. So that was great. But early on, I went downtown one night and did something I rarely did, and I drank. Well, I drank more than I could handle, which wasn't very much. And I actually fell asleep with my head on the bar. Simultaneously, at Reveille, the meeting, we had like 200 people. It was the largest company in Europe, if not the whole Army, administrative company. At Reveille, Sergeant Tadero, first sergeant, called out my name, asked me to come front and center. Well, I was front and center on a bar down in Bremerhaven, sound asleep. So when I came to, I thought, oh my God, I'm in deep doo-doo. I caught a service bus out to the base, and I'm sneaking in through the door, and I thought, oh, if I can only get by Sergeant Tadero's window. Well, I got in front of it, and I hear Tadero. Now he was a wonderful guy. He really was. He was a sweetheart of a fellow to work for. And when he got angry, which happened occasionally, he would stutter badly. So I hear him say, "Juliana, come in here." Well, I thought I was dead. And that's AWOL. That's a jail. You can go to the brig for that. Anyway, I went in there, and he was really irate. I thought, God, I didn't know I was that important. But anyway, on the desk, he's got a Zippo lighter with a military badge on it. He's got some kind of a certificate and something else. And he said, "You son of a bitch." He said, "You're the soldier of the month for Europe." And he made it clear that he either had to have me arrested for being AWOL or give me this award. Now, he gave me the award because they wanted to have Soldier of the Month for Europe in their company. That was a big deal. But he was so irate. He threw the stuff at me and I left. And I could have gone to jail, but instead I had a 3-day pass and a Zippo lighter and a certificate. And I have a little piece of the Boston Globe, which I'll show you, that shows me Soldier of the Month in Europe and citation and so forth. But that he kept his eye on me after that. Anyway, that's an Army story.
What about how did you end up pushing a car over a dock?
You heard about that?
Tell me, it's out there. It's on the internet.
Oh my God! One of the duties I had during the football season, I was assistant football coach. But Bremerhaven Blue Devils, really good, great team in the Army circuit in Europe. We had some professional players. Don Glantz, Washington Redskins, was there, drafted. He was the actual coach. The commander in the base was, well, the commanders of the Army bases were very competitive. They fought each other via their football teams. So that we got wonderful food, training table, and so I was an assistant football coach because, why? Because Don liked me or something. Anyway, so I was an assistant football coach, traveled with the team, ate at the training table. But these guys were a ton of fun. And Don had this 4-door little German car dated from World War II. We were there not long after. I mean, we're talking the 50s here. There were still buildings bombed out when we were there. But anyway, he had this old car, and it was a Gasper, but it ran. But he was going to be going back to the States, so he had to get rid of it. And he said, "I have an idea." So 4 of us got in his car and another car behind us. We went out to the wharf, which is where the United States liner parked, and it was quite a beautiful, it was a big deal. We drive out there, we get out, and he pushes this car over the edge of the dock into the North Sea, and or the Weser River, I guess it was there. But that's, where the United States parked over that car. And the other car was there to take us back to the base. But that was a good moment. I think I didn't have any of that kind of stuff when I was in high school. I was rather sedate, but this was a chance to be foolish. And we were foolish. But anyway, that's the only time I've ever pushed a car into the ocean. The only time.
So it's probably where the Bismarck or the German Navy had it's a deep water port, so you probably had the German World War I battleships and so forth.
It was capable of handling that. I know that that's there, and Cuxhaven, which was next door, is where the U-boat school and where they harbored the U-boats. So I don't know, but most likely, I mean, it was right in the North Sea and it was not that far from England. So it was, I never did check that out.
I mean, that's where the German Navy came out of, and that would have been, if it was a deep water port for a ship like that, I mean, it's got to have been for the...
Oh, it had a very deep, very, very long concrete pier, concrete and stone, and very deep, obviously. But I never did look into the history vis-a-vis, beyond the U-boats.
So did you get drafted? Did you join the Army? Why were you there? How did you do this?
I was drafted. Back in those days, it was draft, and as I I washed out of what am I trying to say? Spacing out here.
Did you go to the university? You go to school? What
No, I was at Tufts, and they had a what's the Army, Air Force, whatever school thing that. Oh,
ROTC?
I knew I'd think of it. The ROTC. I was in Air Force ROTC at Tufts, and I washed out because I have a depth perception problem, and they wanted pilots. And I think I left school at the same time at the end of the third year. I forget how that worked, but I became instantly draftable, and they instantly drafted me. And it was 2 years, and I went off to training, basic, advanced, and then off to Europe. And when I finished with Europe, I came right back to Boston and went to work at WGBH TV.
So how did you find Germans and Europeans and women, and what was it like at the time?
It was cold and wet on the North Sea, Bremerhaven. Immer nass and immer kalt. Always cold, always wet. They were very stiff people. I mean, the North Germans are different than the Bavarian Germans. I mean, the Southern Germans were into partying. The Northern Germans were not, in my experience. I mean, they could get drunk and raise hell and all the rest of it, but it wasn't a joyous place. I was there, not that long after the end of World War II, and we were an occupying force at that time, which gave them a little bit of an edge against us, obviously. In fact, it changed from being an occupying force to being an ally while I was there. And they announced that was about to happen, and do not go downtown for the next couple of nights because we expect that the GIs are going to be the target of some assaults by some of the toughs in town. So there wasn't much of that happened, but we didn't go downtown for a few days. It was a strange kind of thing. It was, we had a lot of the local folks, Germans, working on the base. They stole us blind. They didn't have much at all. And those who worked in the mess hall, one day the lieutenant who was in charge of the guard for that day decided that they would frisk everybody, all the Germans leaving the base. Well, they opened their coats up and they had sausages hanging and things of butter under their arms, and they were like twice the weight they would normally be. And they didn't prosecute because they had to maintain relationship, but maybe they cut back for a few minutes. But yeah, it was that kind of a thing, and I don't think it was a happy place. I mean, I had a good time there with other GIs, and I had a girlfriend there who was just this wonderful young lady from Utah, and we traveled together a lot. She had a Karmann Ghia, which was nice to have a vehicle to travel on, and I learned to speak some German, which was good, but I didn't like the food all that much. I'm Sicilian. The food up there just doesn't go well with my guts. But I was glad when it was over. It was a year. They offered me an extension. If I wanted to become an officer, I could sign up for another year, and I said, So I was out of there ASAP and back to the States.
What was it that gave? What did you do to earn the award of Soldier of Europe for the month?
Soldier of the month for Europe. Yeah, that's a little hard. That's a little hard to understand, frankly.
So maybe you could say, so why? It's going to hear my question. So why did I get the,
You might ask why I was chosen as Soldier of the Month. And I wasn't a troublemaker, except that one night when I fell asleep on the bar in Bremerhaven. But I guess they nominated a whole bunch of people all over Europe as candidates, and I guess on our base there were a few nominated, and they looked at your record, and there was a very thorough examination, written examination, oral examination that I went through, and apparently I aced it. I mean, once it was over, I just forgot about it. I never thought, Soldier of the Month for Europe, what are the chances? And I didn't really. I went because they asked me to, and that was it. And when they, they announced it at Reveille, where I wasn't present. But that's why I was Soldier of the Month, and go figure. I mean,
How did your did you get any pats on the backs or jealousy or anything at all from other soldiers?
Did other soldiers react to it? Pat on the back. I did get from Sergeant Tadero a kick in the ass, but a pat on the back, I don't recall. I don't think anybody cared, frankly. I don't remember anything. I mean, the guys around me knew me, and they knew I wasn't a do-gooder or anything like that. It's like, I don't recall, frankly.
So did you go skiing down in Switzerland or the Alps? I mean, with your girlfriend, did you have some fun while you were there?
Well, I certainly had some fun. When it came to skiing, I bought a pair of skis and bought a pair of boots. And back then, good ski boots were like glove leather. Honestly, I went downtown in Bremerhaven and I bought a pair of ski boots, fair amount of money, and they were soft. They were just lovely. And I went with my girlfriend and some others, and we went to the Harz Mountains, which bordered on East Germany. If you skied the wrong way, you'd end up literally in East Germany in trouble. But Harz Mountains, it was good enough. But I went over a mogul and a bump, and my nose went in the direction of my ski tips. The bindings did not release, and my left ankle said something to me that I didn't care for. But I didn't want to miss the day's skiing, so I continued to ski on it. And at night, I took off that boot, and the ankle puffed up, and I was done for the holiday. And that ankle still bothers me. I mean, I decided not to go through the medical thing because you can be AWOL. They own your body in the Army, in the service, and you're responsible to take care of it. And if you injure yourself foolishly or injure yourself, you're subject to court-martial. So I didn't want to go through that whole thing with my ankle, so I limped for a while. And still, occasionally, I think I have a little bone chip in there. But every once in a while, I'll turn a certain way, and it reminds me of my service to my country. I did end up in the hospital. It was very cold there, as I said, and one morning I got up really early, and I was waiting for the service bus to come, and I was reading a book, and I had what I thought was a heat lamp, and I turned it on, and it was a sun lamp. So I'm reading using a sun lamp. On the service bus, my eyes began to itch. By the time I got to my office, I was blind, literally blind. I could not see a thing. They took me to the hospital, and after a couple of days of treatment, I began to see again, and then my sight returned. And the AG, the attorney for the Army, happened to be a friend of mine. Fortunately, he came to the hospital. And he said, "I'm supposed to arrest you put you on AWOL." But he and I were dating ladies who occupied rooms in the same dormitory. So we had spent a lot of time together, and he just said, "But I'm going to forget about it." And after a while, they released me, and my sight came back, and that's kind of fun I had.
Was it there that you found you were allergic to something and almost died? You ate something and you were choking. You had to give yourself a Heimlich or something like that. Was that what that was?
Well, one of the trips that my friend Ruth and I took was to North Africa, Tangier, that ring. We drove down to the Mediterranean, and on the way I became very ill. I had some kind of a cold or something. I was just not doing well. I wasn't breathing well and all the rest of it. So we swung into an air base down there, American Air Base, for free medical, and the doctor gave me pill, belladonna is what he told me, and it was the size of my thumb. It was huge. And I took that, we got on the boat, we get to Tangier, check into the Fez Hotel, go to dinner, and during dinner, I took a bite of something, and it disappeared. apparently the belladonna killed all the feeling in my throat. So that thing disappeared and I couldn't move it. And I was like dying. I mean, I just couldn't breathe, and I was getting purple, and Ruth heard my gag and looked at me and said, "What can I do?" And I didn't know what the hell she could do, frankly. And then the people in the dining room began to hear my tune. So I didn't know anything about the Heimlich maneuver, bending hard over a chair, back of a chair will give you the, anyway. So, but there was a pitcher of water on the table, and I stood up and flushed myself, and it flushed, literally. Oh my God, that was scary. That was my welcome to Tangier. Otherwise, it was a wonderful experience, but that was no fun. Scared to.
What now? Your back has had issues in recent years. Did you ever injure your back? When you were younger?
Going back in time. I was fine. I played football, I ran, I did all kinds of things. Not well, but I did all kinds of athletic things. And one day, 24 years old, I stepped off the curb in Boston, and my heel hit the street, and the pain in my back was so dramatic that I went down in the street. Went to the doctors, and he said, "You got a very serious L2 and L3, twisted whatever." And I said, "Yeah, but and they said, "Well, you've been lucky all this time," and finally gave out. And it's been a problem ever since. When I was drafted, I went through the medical thing wearing a girdle I had, a brace girdle. And I went through the whole thing with that, shorts, and a pair of socks, right to the end. And I went to the table where they were giving out, and the three doctors, civvies, and they said, looked at me, looked at the tests, and they said 1A. And I said, "Excuse me, doc, do you see this brace I'm wearing?" And he said, "Did you come here in an ambulance?" And I said, because I hadn't. And they talked about it, and they gave me a 2S or something like that. 2S, I think, is S is for spine, I believe. So I went through the Army with, you're not supposed to stand, you're not supposed to walk. You can't lift anything, but they forced me to do all that, and it got worse. I had one experience we had a kind of a make-believe war thing, and the sergeant said to me, "Move that case over there." It was a case of ammunition. It weighed as much as a refrigerator. And I said, "I can't." He said, "Move it." And I pulled out the S2S card, and he said, "Would you just shut up and move that?" And I said, understanding that he's a bureaucrat, and the bureaucrat's real job is keeping their job. That's a real job. So I turned to the guys around me and I said, "Are you witnessing what he's saying to me?" And he said, never mind. Now I thought I had shut this off, but I just did. Yeah, anyway, that was my adventure. My back got worse, and I had to go to the clinic frequently for massages and stuff that didn't help. But I went through the whole Army that way. And when I came out, it was worse. I tried to collect something from them, and they totally refused. I spent 3 years as a civilian trying to get some benefit out of it. They just flat refused. First of all, they said, "Well, do you have your medical records?" And I said, "No, you do." And they said, "Well, we don't, because there was a fire in Indianapolis, and all the military records, Army and Air Force, from 1929 to 1970-something, were lost in a fire." And I said, "Well, what, can anybody help me turn off my phone?" It won't turn off. Isn't that interesting? Stop.
You just keep it in one hand and hit the stop if it starts again. Yeah. Just have it ready to go.
I've never experienced that before. It's insisting it wants to talk to me. So
basically, was that the standard military answer that for any?
Well, it's a true story. I looked it up. They did have a fire out there, and everything was in paper, nothing backed up electronically at the time. And I said, "Well, what do you do with people like me who claim and they need the medical?" And they say, "We do the best we can."
Convenient fire.
Well, I don't think it was set because it was hurt a lot of people. Not physically, but it was they had to talk to people like me and say we do the best we can. But anyway, so it was a washout. I never got anything for my bad back. They didn't initiate the problem, but they certainly worsened it. But so what?
So tell me about finding women on a beach.
Oh, I don't want to talk about her. She's a lovely person I met at Fire Island, but it gets a little bit personal. Wonderful, wonderful young lady, but that was when I was living in Greenwich Village, and it was the 60s. It was all sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
What else do we have on the list? Do you want to pull up some?
What the heck is with this?
So, give me a little snapshot.
A snapshot of some of the family. My mother's two brothers were wonderful guys, very interesting, shady. They took their father, my maternal grandfather, had some issues apparently. I didn't see much of him. I know that eventually the U.S. government paid for his trip back to Italy as long as he didn't come back. I think that's called deportation. But anyway, he's a whole other story. But his two sons, Salvi and Charlie, they were hustlers. Salvi was was a bookie, cab driver, did whatever, nonviolent. Charlie was part of a mob, really. I said the mob was a small group of guys, and I remember that I was just a little guy. I was about 6 or so, based on where I met them. But these guys, big black Buick with the suicide doors, black fedoras, black top coats. I mean, they looked like a movie role, although actually the movie's made after what they looked like, but they kind of moved, all four of them as a unit. And Charlie didn't quite fit. It was part of the Jewish mafia, and of course my uncle was Sicilian, but he was part of that group. And they were into various and sundry scams. But I remember Charlie at one point had 3 full-time jobs simultaneously. I don't think his attendance was very good at them, but he got 3 full-time salaries, and he was partly a ward healer. That is, he worked for the Democratic candidates. And one time I asked them, I knew what they would later in life. I knew that they were semi-legal or illegal. And I said, why aren't you guys further up in the organization? And they laughed. They said, we're afraid of guns. We're not going there. We're not going to get involved. They would do things like transport big fat wads of fat envelopes to church on Sunday morning to give it to some guy. I mean, they used the church as a transfer station. And I remember, Salvi, at one point, had a very, very prosperous bookie parlor in Boston, storefront. And eventually it closed. And I said, what happened? He said every cop in the area would come in a couple of times a day and take a little bit of money from me. And he said eventually they all got so into it that I couldn't make any money. It was all going to the local cops. Anyway,
was it odd that the Jewish guys were going to the church to do the drop-offs?
Oh, I don't know if they were. I mean, my uncles did it, and they were Sicilian. I have no idea if I don't know if that mattered to them. I remember once Salvi. It was one of his broke periods. He either would come in driving a brand new Plymouth convertible, or he'd come over in a cab and ask for a meal. I mean, he was up and down, sideways. But he needed to go to the track with some buddies, and he didn't have a car. None of them did. So he called me and said, can I borrow your car? I said, sure. And it was like a tank. It was a big Dodge, green. Anyway, I got a phone call after a while. He said, Bob, there's been a little accident. I said, oh, what's up? He said, it's just a dent. He's just coming out of the track. We had a little fender bender. But don't worry, I got the guy's numbers, and I put you down as being in the back seat, and you were hurt. So I don't know, maybe I got a couple of $100 out of it. I don't recall what the payoff was, but that was Boston. Maybe it still is. I was in the back seat, scores of miles away, injured. Poor me. Gee, maybe that's how my back went. No, I couldn't have been. And Salvi also, I remember that car needed tires. So one day I'm complaining about it, and I had very little money. He said, I can get you a real bargain on tires. No problem. Good tires, cheap. I said, how much? And he said, well, he told me. And I said, well, I can handle that. So let's go. So I'm in the car with Salvi, me, and my girlfriend at the time, Vera. She was a sweet, innocent girl who ended up being Miss Runner-Up in Miss Massachusetts when she went to BU. But she was my girlfriend in the senior year of high school and a couple of years in college. We were very close. But anyway, we're in the car. He's here, there, and so down in Roxbury. And he says, pull over. And there's just a big, long fence. I expected a driveway into a dealership. He said, no, pull over here. So he disappears. He goes out around the corner. And pretty soon I hear, Bob, here they come. He puts 4 tires, brand new tires, over the fence. Bounce, put them in the car. And they were cheap. And I was party to theft. I mean, both Vera and I were like that. But, go with the flow. So I had 4 cheap tires. Am I going to be under arrest for this? Anyway, that was... and then another thing with Charlie. I turned on television one day, and there's Charlie dying in bed. A documentary on death. And there's his wife, my Aunt Phyllis. And it was on CBS, I believe. It was a very famous documentary on dying. And there's Charlie, and it was like, I knew nothing about it. And I just saw him, and I thought, what? I knew he was ill, but there he was, and there's Aunt Phyllis. And that was something that was difficult to watch, to say the least. Anyway.
How did your the other side of the family, kind of come to terms with Charlie and Salvi.
There wasn't much contact between the maternal and paternal clans. I mean, they were friendly. We went between them. They knew each other, and I guess on occasion there was no hostility, certainly. My father's brothers, there were several of them. They were a straight arrow. I mean, they were totally different family. Totally different. Successful in their way, but none of that criminality at all. They're very, very, very different families. They were both all very lovable, very Sicilian, very great with food and family and all the rest of it, but very different in that regard. They were great to be around, all of them. They were really fun. Really fun.
Were you? Did you ever, ever threaten any enemies at school with your mob uncles to come get them?
No. I was, I guess I still am, very much of a straight shooter. I would never have threatened them with anything. I mean, I wore a necktie and everything. I mean, I was president of my junior class in high school, Boston Technical, and president of my senior class. And my margin of victory doubled from junior to senior years. In my senior year, I won by 2 votes. In my junior year, I think I won by my vote. But they were very successful, years. We started new dances and all the rest of it. It was fun. So if you have a yearbook from Boston Technical 1952, there I am, president of the class, looking all shiny.
So how do those victories translate into women and girls?
During those years, I had one girlfriend, Vera, and Vera is quite present in the yearbook. She was absolutely beautiful, and she's present with the president of the class, moi. You know, and it's very, very impressive. I went to I lost my yearbook, got caught in a flood, and a lot of my stuff got destroyed. But I looked up that yearbook on the web because they're available for too much money. And they showed a picture of, I remember it was taken, it was me and Vera and 3 or 4 guys, and there was a punch bowl or something. And that picture was in there, except they cut me off. And there's Vera with these other 3 guys. I'm not going to buy that yearbook.
You'll have to just, find every copy and paste your head.
Well, I'm sure that's the only image of it without me. I think the yearbooks do have me in there. Yeah, that was, those were heady years.
What is the other, you mentioned there was some other, tell me about the Velcro story.
Oh, that's coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah, when I think I was a junior in high school, and this kid came up to me and said, my father just bought a whole bunch of stock, 10 cents a share. You ought to look into that. I'm going to get some. And I said, what is it? He said, it's this thing, that sticky thing. It's called Velcro, and it's like hooks and holes, and it's like the burr. And he says it's 10 cents a share, and my father thinks it's going to be really big. And, smart as I am, I said, that's nonsense. What are they going to do with that? Hire a teenager while he still knows everything. Yeah, that was one of many near misses, coulda, woulda, shouldas.
What do you think one of your greatest achievements that you are one of the things you're most proud of? Do you think?
One of the things I'm most proud of?
Even if we've covered it before, what would you say were some of the things one of the things you're just really proud to have accomplished?
Something I'm really proud to have accomplished. Somebody's filming my life story, which is really remarkable. Go figure. I mean, I don't know. I worked for Merv Griffin for a bunch of years, 3.5 years. That was an achievement. I finally quit. He offered me the job of producing Jeopardy, which I refused. I guess not doing something is an achievement. I put together a company that was film company, extremely successful. That was a big deal. I don't know. I mean, just the variety of things I've done is my achievement. I remember when I was in my 14, I realized that I was going to have just one life. I didn't believe in the afterlife, and I said I'm going to live in a full, adventuresome life, and I've been doing it. Still am doing it. At 86. 86. I thought I was 85. And I said that to my optometrist. I said, I've turned 85 since the last time I was here. And he looked at my chart. He said, no, you're 86. So I've had 2 birthdays this year. 86. I guess that's an achievement.
What is it, 86 or 96 when they're telling it's done? 86 that. Is 86 that or 96 that?
86 that.
86 that.
Restaurant talk.
Right.
It means it's off the menu or 86 that person.
Right.
So what's your point?
There's a warning, that's all.
Yeah. So people say, Bob, when they know my age, you don't look 86, you look a lot younger. And I say, I have a secret, which I don't tell everybody, but I'll tell you. And they usually get in close, and I say, I have a friend who's an excellent taxidermist, specializes in roadkill. And they laugh or slap me or turn and walk away, never to be heard of again. Anyway, I'm exhausted.
Right.
I'm beat.
Okay, and one last question before you go.
That's Reggie. As determined as, relentless as a toothache.
You mentioned, I just can't. You mentioned about Well, stuff. Yeah. What? So at 86, how many projects are you contemplating currently? How many projects are you involved with or are currently active in your mind and thinking about? How many projects? From woodworking,
Five-
woodworking to
No, not I just professional projects. There are five professional projects that are in. Excuse me, that are in the.
You get you some water?
No, you got any whiskey? No, there was no whiskey here. No,
Let's start that again. 86. How many projects you got going on?
well, at the moment there are five professional projects, film related, documentary related, whatever, on the drafting board. Five of them. Maybe one or two, or maybe none will happen, but they're in active development. I'm about to interview for a job for the summer and fall as a tour guide. The ships come into Portland Harbor. There are buses. People get on the bus, go down to the Kennebunk port, to the Bush family compound and other places. And a friend of mine's been a tour guide for 8 years on that stuff, and he says the money's excellent, it's real fun, and Bob, you got a line that you could do really well, enjoy yourself, and keep you off the streets for a few hours a day. So I'm applying for that. Yeah, that's what's going on. So I haven't quite retired yet.
Are you having fun?
Oh yeah, for the most part I am having fun, and I'm, in this little apartment I have with this incredible view, I'm doing some remodeling. I've found my tools, which I had stored, and I'm putting in some shelves and so forth and so on, and repairing some things I have that needed repairing now that I have my tools back. And I'm repairing a guitar which has a cracked neck, a very nice guitar that has a cracked neck, and I'm repairing that properly. And like that.
Good. So life is not too bad.
I wish I had more energy. I'm 86 and I feel it. But my teeth need some work, and my eye needs a lens replacement. It's beginning to cloud up. And no, I'm 86. What the hell? But I have no complaints about my health, really. I mean, so the dentist says, your teeth are fine, the gums have got to go. Anyway, that's
what you got.
That's it.
All right.
I'm 86 and I'm tired.
86 that.
86 me.